this is going to be something I hope that brings value and that you can go back to and listen to again. Precision Brad is gonna talk about what Precision Brad talks about, which is all things planters. We're gonna make this a series, which I think is gonna be really fun. So today we're going to go through a lot of like the starting points, what you need to be thinking about. Because, I mean, we've talked about this a couple times now. And if you work with us, this is a conversation we're trying to help you guys with. But how do we make money in 2026? It's not going to be easy. I think we're going to need more help on the back end with some of these pricing problems, but we want to help you guys succeed and we want to help you be able to make cuts where it makes sense. And we want you to not make cuts where you're going to lose yield by doing so. And so, one of the things I'm sure you've heard people say before is the planner pass is the most important pass we make all year. If we get that pass wrong, nothing else, I mean, we can't make up for it later. So we're going to go through some things I hope will bring you value. It might make you think of questions. Please ask questions throughout this webinar. We welcome all those questions and we want to get you thinking and get you thinking about your planner now. I know it's almost Thanksgiving. A lot of people have their planner parked somewhere out of the way. It might be, in the back of the shed right now, but it's important to start thinking about this stuff now because if you're going to make changes, you're going to make upgrades, even just planner maintenance, some of these parts need to be ordered early. And you just got to be thinking about it early so that, I mean, if you're like me, I mean, you blink and it's going to be planting time and you're like, crap, I wanted to do this. I didn't get it done. It's another year. We're just going to have to roll with it. And they say the average farmer only gets to make decisions for 30 crops and you can blink and Precision Brad, you probably work with people that will say like, man, I wanted to put this system on 3 years ago and we're just now getting to it. So the days go by really quickly. So Precision Brad, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey
Uh,
Camille, let me jump in, Brad, before you get started, man.
Yeah.
So
Hey, Patrick.
just just to start, first off, Brad has no idea what he's talking about. Okay, I need to let everybody know that. So I don't even know why we're here. So I'm kidding. Hey, precision, Brad. I feel like guys, and a lot of you are farmer customers of ours, farmer dealers. Some of you are independent retail organizations. In my opinion, and I've said this for a year now, Brad is probably the most underutilized asset within our company, in my opinion, because he is in Mayfield, but he has a phone, and y'all wear this dude out. I want Brad upset and looking for some help. We know this, guys. We are a company that wants to be about providing information to a grower to help them make money. But at the end of the day, a lot of what we do is we have a cost of a product. We get it to you guys as dealers and or growers at a reduced price because of keeping the overhead down, et cetera, et cetera. And generally, we make our money with the trade margin in between. That's kind of how we go to market. Um, Precision Brad is outside of that realm. He lives in it, but he's outside of that. And we know this. Our Mutiny products, that we do vet them. We work with a multitude of manufacturers. Y'all know that. But here's what I know. Our products don't matter a whole lot if the planter pass isn't right.
Amen.
That's what we know. And I can tell you and show you over and over and over some of the easiest or most difficult bushels come from that planter pass, whether it's operational stuff that Brad will get into, or it's the delivery of our products, the accuracy of those kind of things. And so the one, thank you, Precision Brad, for putting this together, and Camille for us. I hope you guys stay locked in. Um, and two, I just want to remind you, you as Mutiny dealers and Mutiny customers, Brad is on as a resource for you. He doesn't have any work to do without you guys. Okay. So in my opinion, I will put him up against anyone in the country as to what he does. We are fortunate to have him on staff. Brad, Camille, thank you for putting it together. Brad, jump in. I hope your head's not too big. Go ahead, brother.
that's a yeah. Thanks for that intro. Better than I deserve, but kind of something before we get started to kind of keep in mind. Some of this could be something you've seen before. Some of it may not. The biggest thing is kind of challenging the way that you think about the planner pass, there's some things that still I can miss and I still learn every time I go look at a planner. So just use this mainly as a thought process on how you approach your planner. And then if you're finding out something or you learn something with yours, share it with the group and we all can learn and benefit from it and kind of move forward and keep getting better.
I like it. Okay, we're gonna get started. Let's see if I can figure out how to go forward. Okay, so this is a triangle you see here, this pyramid. I always like to make people laugh to get started because we want to be light and we want you guys to ask questions. And so this is, I think, something we all think about not enough. So the very bottom, we've got emergence and compaction. You can interchange those two. Compaction may be a bigger deal than emergence. I know Precision Brad, we talked about flipping those two on the chart. But everything in this triangle pyramid has the potential to reduce your yield. So the second that seed goes in the ground, guys, your yield is determined right away by a lot of these things. If you get one of these things wrong, it could end up making you lose, or I mean, lots of bushels. So, Brad, do you want to talk about how these factors affect emergence? I know this is something you work with at the planner level. Very.
Yes, ma'am. And I love this visual strictly because it starts kind of what I touched on in the beginning, just the thought process. So when you're looking at this pyramid and you're talking to most farmers, what I keep finding out is a lot of people are just worried about that tip of the pyramid. So they're just worried about that target population, what they're going to punch in for their planter to plant on this field or whatever. So there's other steps that we need to take into consideration to achieve that target population. We need to manage compaction. We need to have even emergence. We need to singulate the seed and we need to space it properly. If we can do all those things and achieve our target population, that is going to give us the best start, the best foundation that you can possibly have for the season.
Yep. Okay, we're going to move on to the next slide. And this is something, if you have worked with us for even 10 minutes, you've seen this. So I'll set it up just for anybody that hasn't. Liebig's law of the minimum. It's not perfect. We made this our own. So you got yield in the middle. It leaks out by a lot of different things. So you could say the most limiting thing on your farm might be biological activity. It might be planter issues. It could be potassium, phosphorus, all these different things, but it makes a big difference at the end. So the goal, you talk to somebody like David Hula or Alex Harrell, some of these high yield guys, when they open that bag of seed, what's the potential? Well, David's already proved we can have over 600 bushel corn. And if you listen to him talk, I think I've heard him say 1,000 bushel potential. And everything we do lowers what that end yield is going to be. We're losing, the goal is to lose less. So how do we retain more yield? I actually changed this today for Brad. It's going to be Precision Brad's law of the minimum. So Brad, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yes, ma'am. So when we're talking about the planter area, and like you just said, so your yield potential is in the bag. So as soon as it comes out of the bag, it's as high as it's ever going to produce right there. So everything from the start to finish, we're talking percentages. So if you're making mistakes in the very, very beginning, you're losing such a big percentage of your yield potential for the entire season that you can never make that up. It's not a 2 bushel because you made this mistake. It's not a 5 bushel because you made this mistake. It's a 15% of the total yield that you would have captured on that field. So these tend to be really, really big, staggering numbers, as you will see as we kind of go through this presentation. And I believe and very, very strongly that planter issues cause the biggest yield loss out of anything. And I truly believe that.
So, Precision Brad, this is some data from Precision Planting. I'm going to let you talk through this because this was really eye-opening to me. So, what did they do in this study from 2021 to 2023?
So this was a 3-year study that they didn't actually use a 2020 to exactly just say, hey, we're going to singulate the seed at 95% and blah, blah, blah. This was, they introduced a goof plate to guarantee a skip or a multiple. And this was a 9% singulation difference on this study. And this is where you see that number that pops up a lot of times. I know several companies kind of adopted it, the 2 bushel per singulation point. And once again, I don't know if that's always exactly. I think it's still a percentage of yield that we're seeing, but it is a very, very common. And this one, it's just slightly under. I mean, that's probably about a 1.85 or something like that. Yield loss, bushels per acre. But uh, the biggest thing here is just knowing kind of that singulation by itself makes a huge deal in your end result and your yield.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So I always like to reference multiple data points. So I'm going to show you some data from Beck's Hybrid. So this was in their 2025 book that's just coming out. So there's 5 different locations here. So you see Indiana, Central Illinois, Southern Illinois in the top, and then they've got Kentucky and Ohio in the bottom. The control in their studies was floating row cleaners, standard automated hydraulic downforce, 2-inch planting depth, greater than 99% singulation, first notch closing wheel pressure. And what I want you to pay attention to, because like you talk about, Brad, this can be a percentage thing. And if your goal at 200 bushel corn versus 400 bushel corn, that percentage is going to be very different. Hold on one second. My dog came up here and started doing a squeak toy. Sorry. Okay, so your percentage could be very different depending on your yield goal, but look at some of these things. And depending on your CEC, your soil type, these things are going to change for where you are. And I think that's really important to pay attention to. But when you look at row cleaners being too aggressive, and this is 3 locations average data. Okay, so this is not just one location. Just the cleaners being too aggressive versus the control with the correct standard, almost 2 bushel. Hydraulic downforce being too heavy, almost 2 bushel. Planting depth, they planted too shallow, 1 inch, 2.4 bushel. Singulation being less than 95%, 3.5 bushel. You guys can read this stuff, but you put all those together, that is some big numbers. So the return on investment, that's a per acre. Across those 3 locations, the closing wheel pressure being excessive on the fourth notch, $20.77 per acre. And this was at $4.42 corn. So they've done this for 2 years. Again, I just like to reference multiple data points. So if you combine locations and years, I think there's value, even if you don't live anywhere near those locations. When you combine data, I think it does speak. So across 2 years, 5 locations, this was the negative returns on investment from just having that planter messed up. And they did this on a large scale. This is not small plot stuff. So this is with a big planter. They're using precision. I've worked there before, and they do a really good job with this data. So just want to show you another data point. All right, let's move to the next one. Okay, precision, Brad. I'm gonna let you do this, but this when you first presented this to us last year. I know some of the dealers that are on this call, you've seen this, but we forget stuff in a year, Brad. It's been a year since I've seen this, and I was like, man, we have got to talk about this and the effect of the bottom line on the farm level. So go ahead.
Yes, yes, ma'am. So this was 9 planters over the course of 3 years as I started. I guess after the very first time I ever listened to David Hula and Randy Dowdy start talking, that I started going down the rabbit hole of seeing how bad truly are planters, especially in our area. So these were all between Graves County and Ballard County, Kentucky. But there were, yeah, 9 16-row planters. The acres planted and stuff like that is kind of irrelevant in this situation in terms of unless it's just the total loss for the year. But it was a lot of work. But I hope we can keep getting you guys to do these, and we can keep kind of learning as we go forward. Because as we can see, I think we have a lot of room for improvement here. So kind of talk through how I do this. So we measure off our 1/1000th of an acre on an entire planter pass, and we pull every single ear off. I use a electric sheller to pull all the corn off, and then I weigh it individually. I check the moisture. I pull the moisture out of the seed. That's the dry matter figure you see there. I add moisture back in it, get everything on that level playing field, and divide it out and see the bushels. The bushels aren't always perfect, but what I want to stress is everything is on a perfectly fair playing field, so it is a very accurate as far as proportional representation. So one of my favorite things to really look at is you can kind of go through and look at the ear counts and then the row weight. The row weight is in pounds, the weight per ear, that is in ounces. So if you're looking at that, you can start seeing that those emergence problems, it's a percentage of yield. It's a weight thing that you are massively losing. And I believe that's what's attributing to the biggest yield loss. You can even go, let's pick one. Let's go row number 6 is 29 ear count. So we're right up there with our best row was 31. But if you move over to the row weight, we're still probably 20-30% less of 11 and 12. And then if you go and to look at the weight per ears as well, you can see why that happened. Now, I think something I can do going forward that's really going to help make sense of this is don't necessarily just do an ear count. I want a harvestable ears and I want plants that you actually saw. So even if there was a plant, I still want to count that plant and just note that it did not have a harvestable ear because I think there's something we can learn from that on where that came from. Um, as we kind of move over to the right, we can start seeing, and I'll kind of explain to you how I come up with the loss figure on this. So I take the highest yielding row and then I subtract it by whatever row that we are going and multiply that by the current court price and then multiply that out by the acres, and that is your total loss for this season on that row and then going all the way to the bottom with your total. Kind of looking at the bottom, you kind of see just your base stat sheet, your average, your highest row, your low row, your standard deviation. Standard deviation is just a fancy way of saying average of an average. In
Mhm.
my opinion, that is our row variability number. That's on average. How far off are we from the average yield, which was our mean was 177 in this case. So that is our row variability number. So how much of a difference can we make on this 36 bushels? Can we cut it in half? Can we get it to 5? Can we get it to 10? I'm not exactly sure. What I want to stress to you is I think we can do a substantially better job. And like I said, these are actually some of the better ones that I have done in average. Me and Camille talked yesterday. I had an 8-row planner that I did in McCracken County 2 years ago, and it's an 8-row planner. It was a Kinsey 2600, and it single frame section planner, and there that standard deviation number was 101 bushels on his planner. Um, that is
That's crazy.
massively eye-opening. It doesn't take very many acres, and it that's a lot of money. And as you can kind of look at the total loss, even on this with a standard deviation of 36.57, you're still on 500 acres with a 16-row planner is still a $99,000 loss. I mean, these are massive numbers, and I attribute all this to what we kind of talked about in the beginning is planner mistakes are percentages. They're not just a certain number of bushels that you're going to lose. And a lot of that based off of planting conditions. And what Camille was showing us in the slide before that, Bex kind of shows us is let's say the closing wheel pressure. So our closing wheel pressure on our barrel stave might not end up being our limiting factor because we had plenty of moisture in the soil and your planting conditions were absolutely beautiful. And guess what? You might not get an extra 20% from your closing system in this case, but guess what? You didn't lose it there either. And you set yourself up for success going forward. And that's the biggest thing with this is understanding that these losses you carry with you the entire season, and there's no making up for it. There's no amount of humic acid or molybdenum or boron that you can make up for it. And don't get me wrong, it's still beneficial, and you're still capturing more and helping that plant. But the big percentage was already lost on the planter pass.
Yeah. And so what I think about Brad is you got to pay attention. And this is hard. I mean, we run a 24-row corn planter on our farm. It's hard to make that
Nightmare.
perfect. I mean, I'd say my brother puts as much attention to detail on the planter as anybody in the country. I mean, he is very meticulous, but there's a lot of variability row to row. And this could mean you're profitable in 2026 or you lose money in 2026. So when we talk about, where we can reduce dry fertilizer, we can talk about all the different things that you can do. This is the starting point. And so I want you guys to just pay attention. Um, and Brad, we're going to talk about how do we do this without spending a lot of money. Nobody's got a lot of money to spend in 2026, and I think you can do small things that can make a really big difference as far as the planner pass goes.
Hey, Camille, do you mind? Could I
Yeah,
interject just a few seconds here on
always.
that? Thank you, Precision Brad, and Camille for showing this. Essentially, guys, a lot of you on this call, you're farmers. Okay, you make your money by producing bushels. Um, and what this shows, I don't know if you can see the number at the very bottom, but on a 16-row planter, across 16 rows, there was over 100 bushels of variability. So I can't see which row because I'm driving, but one of the rows yielded 113 bushels per acre. And one of the rows went 126 or something like
Or
that.
221.1.
Yeah, sorry, 221. Thank you, Brad. So over 100 bushels of variability. Here's where I want us to be careful as growers. Be careful about the data that you receive and that you believe and that you even produce. This is why this is uncommon opinion for Patrick, and people hate when I say this, but this is why I say this. In this scenario, and Brad, you don't have these numbers, but I bet you money if we took rows, and this is coming from a planner that someone thinks is dialed in, by the way.
Yes,
It's a
yes,
hundred,
yes.
it's 100 bushels of variability from row 1 to row 16. It did not rain any differently. The soil types are relatively similar. We did not fertilize any differently, but there's 100 bushel swing. Here's my challenge to y'all as you analyze data from your own planner and or from someone coming to sell you something, including me, by the way. Rows 1 through 8 have a yield. Okay. Rows 9 through 16 also have a yield. So what I've always been told is the fairest way to do this to test the corn hybrid is what? Split a planter and replicate it over and over and over and over. Well, guess what? Hybrid A goes in rows 1 through 8, and it's actually 5 bushels better realistically than hybrid B. But hybrid A is the 1 through 8 is 220 bushels because of planter performance. Hybrid B is actually a worse hybrid, but rows 9 through 16, they perform 20 bushels better. So there's a 15 bushel positive response on hybrid B over on rows 9 through 16, but it had nothing to do with the hybrid. It had everything to do with the planter in that scenario. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
There's a world in which there's not a world in which the best planters that I've ever seen in this scenario still have 30 bushels of swing across it. So when I come to you, if you're a seed salesman on this call, or if you are like, if someone says, I will band your liquid litter and I'll split a planter and I'll turn off my in-furrow in this section, I'm just like, I don't buy it. I also don't buy when people come to me to sell me something with split planter data. I'm sorry. This is it. This is it. So, anyways, I just want all of us to be cautious as we analyze our own data and someone else's data in a split. At least know these numbers. At least as you analyze products and practices on your own farm, I caution you to know these numbers because I promise the best grower on this call, you've still got 25 to 30 bushels of variability across your planter.
Yep. I'm glad you said that because you're
Yeah,
spot
well
on.
said.
Okay, where's my mouse? I can go to the next slide. Okay, there it is. Okay, Precision Brad, this is your slide. I'm going to let you kind of talk about placement of the seed and why that is such a big deal.
This is another slide that Precision Planting kind of releases to us, and this is where they pull a lot of their numbers from. And another key factor, I know I've said it 1,000 times, but these are percentages. So starting from the left, that would be 10%, 20%, 40%, and so on. So the first two errors that you're seeing right there, those are spacing issues. A lot of times we see those mimic just to a lesser of an extent of a double or a skip based off of how much it was misplaced. And that's kind of where it kind of follows slightly, I guess, less of a a bad mistake to make as far as then a singulation issue. And then our two in the middle is our doubles and our skips. And on average, over all the plants that Precision Planting has counted and taken to yield on the PTI form, they have found a double is a 40% loss, a skip is 80% loss. And know that the skip is just there's no plant at all, so at least we did not have the seed cost. So if you're thinking of a ROI standpoint, those even out a whole lot more than you would think because you are having the seed cost as well in with the double. Um, as you move to the right is where we really start losing it. A lot of people have gotten to a point where our meters have gotten advanced enough and we kind of know our planners and understand that the faster we drive and things that we do and getting our meters ran that we can really tackle the spacing still sometimes is an issue for some of us, but the singulation we've really honed in on it and we've done good. The right is where we start seeing a lot of our other issues as far as how well the planter is actually performing. These are your LE1 would be a late emerger 24 hours after the first plant pops up. On average, they say it would be one caller behind. I think there's data even now showing 12 hours can even be a full caller behind. And then our two is a LE2, two callers behind. That would be a 48-hour plant, and that would be a total loss, is what Precision's planning is saying. I will tell you, I have done this several times. And a lot of times those LE2s are not complete and total losses. You are still getting 20, 30, sometimes even 40% out of it. But what I will stress is more often than not, if you're really doing a full planter wide emergence or flag test, you will see you have more LE3s than you think you do. And those are a nightmare. Those really are a total loss. More often than not, you won't even see a nub or anything. It won't even attempt to make an ear if it is the three callers behind. So that is something to kind of be mindful of, and that's why flag testing is still it's a pain in the butt, especially doing it on a full planter. I know I've done a bajillion. It's even worse when you take it to yield like I did in a couple slides over. It's a lot of work.
A
But what I
lot.
will say is you will learn a lot about how your planter's actually doing. And hey, you might learn something about, hey, these soil conditions and these planting conditions resulted in this. So that might be something that you can a light bulb goes off in your head and you really start learning when you should be planning on those times where you're like, I don't know if I need to go right now or if I need to wait till tomorrow or if I need to run a Kelly diamond across. Like you'll start finding those things that work for you and give you that even emergence, and then I think you will start seeing those numbers shoot up.
Right. And it matters too, like the conditions when we're planting. So how many GDUs are we accumulating per day? Because it might be, if it's really warm, 12 hours may happen, you might accumulate more or less GDUs. So it could be 3, 4 days difference if we plant and then it gets cool. I've seen that a lot through the years. It just depends on how many we're accumulating as we're talking about this too. So again, I always like to reference multiple data points. So I'm going to show you guys some data from Pioneer. This is several years old, but I think it tells a good story on plant spacing. So they've got on the left the planting outcome, perfect spacing, skip, double, misplaced seed by 1/4 of an inch, seed misplaced 1/2 an inch, seed misplaced 3/4 of an inch. And all the way over on the right, you can see the percentage of yield potential. So if you've got the perfect spacing, of course you have 100% potential. When you start to skip, you're reducing right away, 73% yield potential. A double can actually add to the potential, but we know those weeds compete for sunlight, air, so that's really not a good thing either. So I just wanted to give you guys a second data point. I know sometimes when we're looking at some small plot, some of these research farms, PTI Bex, you can name any of them, they've got tile, they don't have inrows, and so I think some of those numbers can be a little bit high. So what does it look like when we take it to a field setting? So just wanted to talk about that quickly. Let's go ahead and move on. I think this is cool. So this is a picture I took in the field. I can't tell you what state I was in, but I just did this a couple of years ago. You see the ears all lined up there. The spacing's perfect though. Look at the spacing. So we've got perfectly spaced. If you put your fingers apart, those plants are very well spaced. But you see very different ears. And so this is what we're going to talk about in a minute. We've got a really good time lapse of what I think probably caused this. But when we talk about getting that seed in the ground, there are lots of different variables we have to think about. We've got to think about oxygen. We've got to think about residue getting pushed down in there. There's so many different things that can happen. Sidewall compaction, but it can very largely affect the outcome of that ear. So I wanted to show you that picture.
I really like that picture.
This is some pictures. These are old. I apologize. These are like 7 years old, but this is what Precision Brad essentially did. This is something that he's going to come to where I live on my farm. We're going to do this on my planter this year. So you count 17 feet 5 inches, and you collect all the ears for that acre row, right? So all these ears are on this board here. And then you can see by what happened. So we've got a late emerger here compared to that big ear. You've got a double, again, that chart that I showed from Pioneer, there's 113% yield potential because those two ears are right beside each other. But we know that affects overall. They've got some issues with stink bugs, it looks like in this picture too. I'm a visual learner, so I just like to show you guys pictures and get you thinking. Again, this today I just want you guys to start thinking about the planner. That's the biggest thing for today. So this is a picture of really well singulated corn. You can see a couple small. You already got those runts, as we like to call them, Brad. Again, I like to see visuals. So here are these time lapses that we talked about. So Brad, I'm going to let you set this up. What did they do? What was the goal here? And as we play this video, you and I can just talk through it.
So this is the exact same soil, and what we did is run an experiment over 24 hours and seeing how seeds germinate based off of soil density. And this is a probably the biggest key factor in how well you can get and achieve even emergence. And as you watch on the left, this is something that we have left. Our ratio of air to water in the soil profile. We've left it a lot more mellow. And on the right, we simulated a one-stage closing system that was a little bit too narrow. That was not, we didn't have, I believe 2.5 is what technically they need to be at if you're trying to close from the bottom up. This one was simulated closing from the top down and just kind of over smashing on the right. So as you see this, the plants that are circled on the right as it plays out, what do you notice? They didn't even germinate. On the left, we're completely finished. We're up out of the ground. It looks pretty even. You kind of can't see the top of the picture, but they came up evenly. Camille, I'm going to let you touch on the root thing because that was
Yeah, no,
eye-opening when you explained that to me yesterday.
yeah, so I always nerd out on stuff like this. I didn't even look at the top above ground. I was looking at the roots the whole time. So this is something that one of my old bosses taught me years ago, and I really think there's a lot of value in learning this. So that first root, can you see my pointer when I point on the screen? Can you see my pointer, Brad?
I can, yes.
Okay, so that first root that comes out, that's called your radical root. Okay, that's nothing new. You guys probably all know this, but the roots tell you a story, and you can dig up the corn plant middle of the season, late season, and you can still see this story. Okay, so the first 12 to 24 hours, that plant went into the ground. The length of the radical root, the longer it is, the more hairs, the more fine hairs that are on it. That means you had a really good 12 to 24 hours. That root grew really quickly. Look how white and how thick it is. This plant had a good time right after it was put in the ground. The next roots that come out are called your seminal roots. So you can see that where I'm pointing right here. These are your seminal roots. That is 24 to 48 hours after the plant was planted. How many you have, how long they are, how many little root hairs are on those seminal roots that tells you a story of the next little bit that plant was in the ground. Look at the vast difference. So I didn't even look to see what the emergence was. I was watching these roots, and man, I right away I was seeing a lot of uniformity. There's a lot of good stuff going on, but um, you learn a lot looking below the ground. That's my point in this. So. Okay, we're gonna go to the next one. This is moisture loss in loose soil. So you kind of set up that first one, Brad. I'm gonna go ahead and play this. Watch the moisture on the screen, guys. I know it's just a little bit blurry, but this is really visual for me. I mean, if you work your ground, I know a lot of you got to find that fine balance, right? We got to be able to get the seed up. It has to come up, but we sometimes can cause a lot of moisture loss by doing so. So watch this video. You can talk through it, Brad, if you want what's happening.
So as you watch on the left, the soil was left loose in drier conditions. And what you see is by the time the seed starts germinating, right about there, the moisture line is actually dipping below the seed and we're not actually holding it. If you look on the right, we're still probably our moisture line is an inch higher. And look how even all of those seeds are coming up in unison versus on the left. This is what's happening in your fields. I mean, this is the story it's telling itself. It's real, and no matter if you have a one-stage system or a two-stage system, being able to make sure that it is set right for your planning conditions is massive. And it could change day to day, it can change field to field. And knowing I have a one stage system, so I need to make sure that I understand the weights that the different notches put on it. I need to understand that the distance that you put in between those wheels, how much you're shimming those, makes a big difference with the amount of pressure and where you are actually applying that pressure at. And it doesn't take you don't have to have furrow force to be able to achieve good closing. Now, don't get me wrong, it helps in tougher conditions, but what we're seeing right here, this is a perfectly controlled environment. So,
Man. Well, again, look at the roots. Like the roots are telling you the story before the
and
coleoptile
I've never
comes
noticed
out.
that about these that I've clipped until you said that.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and those two-stage systems. I mean, I'm you don't have to go spend a lot of money to do better on your planner, but like I've walked behind some of these planners that have furrow force, or even like the case closing two-stage system. Like I sometimes can't even find the furrow. Like where is the seed even at? And so when you can place it where it's undisturbed, you have really good seed to soil contact. You're going to imbibe water a lot faster, a lot more uniformly. Those roots are going to be able to move better throughout the soil profile. It's a really big deal. And we talk about nutrients like phosphorus. We talk about phosphorus all the time. Um, you've got to have good mycorrhizal fungi activity. I'm going to show you a slide in a second that's going to talk a little bit better about that. But you've got to have good soil seed to soil contact, and those roots have to be able to get out and do their job because we know phosphorus moves very, very little. So we need all the fungi we can get working for us and not against.
Go back one slide if you don't mind,
Yeah,
Camille.
right
So
here.
in this one, you can kind of see on the right, there is zero oxygen almost in the soil profile, especially around the seeds that it's about to circle. That is because we've actually squeezed out all the oxygen in the soil. And on the next one, when you see we have the adverse effect. This is when we introduce too much oxygen in the soil profile. Look at all those air pockets right around where the seeds are planted. There's air pockets everywhere. And then on the right, you can see that we didn't create all those air pockets. We had plenty of moisture. We had just enough oxygen in the soil profile, and we invited a perfect environment for even emergence.
Yep. So cool stuff. Thanks for sharing that with me, Brad. I liked looking at that. Let's see. So this is a really nerdy chart. Again, I like to explain things. You guys have way too much to remember. So how do we take some of this and actually use it? So when you look at this chart, you're looking at the bottom across the bottom, it's percent of water-filled pore space, and up the left side is relative microbial activity. So there's three different lines here. So you've got ammonification and respiration. These are like microbes breaking down leftover food. Think old roots, crop residue, into usable nitrogen. Then your blue line, nitrification, this is microbes turning ammonium into nitrate. That only happens when there's lots of air in the soil. So it works when we got 50, 60%, which you can see there on that chart. And then the red line, denitrification. This is microbes turning nitrate into gas that floats away, just poof, gone. So this happens when there's not enough air. So what does this actually mean? How do you take this and think about it with your planner? Soil's too dry, so 0 to 40%. The microbes are barely working. We've got to have microbial activity helping us, especially going into 26 when we're trying to spend less money on fertilizer in general so that we can make money. It's crazy. But we got to have the microbes working for us. So we have to be able to get in that right zone at 50, 60%. The water filled pores, this is a sweet spot. So your microbes are super active. The nitrification's at its highest, healthy roots, great nitrogen cycling. And then when we get to 70 to 100%, that's soil's too wet, there's not enough air, nitrification shuts down. So simple story, again, like how do you remember this? So
It's
imagine,
back to our downforce systems and our closing system. This is what's causing all of this right here. All of your soil density and your relationship between your solid and pore space is deemed by your gauge wheels, the pressure that they're putting on the sidewall, and your closing system coming back and closing up that furrow. That is the two things that are responsible for soil density.
yep. So just think of these microbes, they're little workers in a factory. So if the soil's too dry, there's no water, the workers aren't going to do much. If the soil is right, they're working really fast, they're making nitrogen for your plants. And then when that soil's too wet, the workers run out of air, they start making gas, and that it just escapes. So I've got kids, so I think of silly stuff often. So what can we do, Precision Brad? Don't want to spend a lot of money. I want to make my planter better for 2026, which I told you guys at the beginning. We're going to have a second webinar. I'll announce the date at the end. But what can they be thinking about just to kind of get that ball rolling?
Okay, so I guess this makes it easier because we got the slide with the setting seed. So we'll start with depth. Everybody knows kind of somewhat or somewhat familiar with setting up your depth on the planner. So a lot of people still use and die by their notches, and believe it, more often than not, if you were to do a true up check on all of your components on the planner and do a depth check on a 4x4 or one of these nice tools right here. You can source it from just about anywhere. Everybody sells one. You can get it through me if you want. But basically, you set your gauge wheels on top of those two yellow pieces and drop your planter down, and each of those plates is 1/4 of an inch, and you can really get a true up on your depth all the way across the planter based off of all your wear parts. So let's say your mustaches on a deer planter are starting to show some wear. That doesn't necessarily mean, hey, I need to replace my gauge wheel arms and my mustache. If you do a true up and get everything true back up, it can be on completely different settings. I don't care about that. What I want is to make sure that it's going to plant exactly where you're wanting that seed to be planted. Another thing to kind of touch up on with this before I forget about it is this is something really, really neat that I've never really heard anybody talk about it. I don't know if Hunter Alvarez is in here or not, but me and him were working on his planner last year, and I found something out. We all know when we're shimming disc openers and stuff like that, everybody says either check it in one spot, three spots, five spots, depending on who you are. You check it in multiple places depending on how true the radial and axial runout is of whatever wheel or bearing that you're trying to spin. So if you actually take a look at your gauge wheels when you're doing this, what I found is I set my depth, and then we pulled the planter up and set that row one more time just to check it. But I spun the gauge wheel about 45 or 90 degrees. I don't exactly remember. And then I rechecked the depth. What I found is on the gauge wheels he had, which were brand new, by the way, they never had been
Ah,
used, brand new. I think he said he bought them off a shoot, but regardless, they were 1/2 inch of depth variability on a brand new gauge wheel. And if you think it probably has a 36-inch circumference, so every 3 feet, you are introducing 4 to 5 seeds that are probably now at a half inch deeper or half inch shallower. And you are going to see that on every single acre you plant that year. And it's only going to get worse.
So I'm glad you brought that up. It triggered my memory back to a meeting I was at where Alex Harrell was presenting, and he talks really in depth about planters. He replaces pretty much anything that moves on his planter every year because of the wear and the variance. And one thing he was talking about, I'm pretty sure he was talking about his disc openers. You can order them brand new and start pairing them up, and like a lot of times they're brand new and they're already worn. The measurements are off. So getting this stuff right is not super easy. We actually bought one of these set and seeds. We've got 3 planters that we run. And it was very eye-opening, Brad. We took a white Sharpie and we marked where the depths should be set on each row. And it was very different. Like some rows were a 3-2, some rows were a 1-1, some rows were a 5-4. I mean, it was crazy. Every row is so different. And so as you're setting your depth in your field, you have to change. I check my depth in every field I pull into when I'm planting, and you have to change based on the conditions. And so it's so easy. Like you're in a hurry, you're like, okay, 3-2, 2-2, like whatever, we're gonna set this thing and roll. And like that depth is very, very different from row to row. So this is one of the things. Again, I don't want you guys to go spend a bunch of money. How do we dial in without spending a bunch of money? This is one of the easiest things I think you can do.
And no, based off of how many acres you are covering, there's a good chance that you have to do this multiple times a season. If you are a
Yeah.
guy who's trying to cover 5 or 6 thousand acres, odds are your gauge wheels and your mustache, I keep picking on John Deere units, your depth adjustment pieces, anything that is keeping your gauge wheel arm from moving either further up, if it starts getting worn, it's changing that relationship constantly as you're going through a field and covering more and more acres. So just be wary of how fast your parts are wearing when you do check it. Check it the first time, check it after 200 acres and see if you can notice a difference. If you don't notice a difference, guess what? You plant another 200, you probably don't have to get off and check it, but just have an idea of after X amount of acres, there's a good chance that I need to recheck this and get it back right again so I can finish out strong and you don't start making more mistakes later on in the season.
And we realize, guys, that is way easier said than done. Like when we're in the thick of planting, like we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. But this stuff, I mean, he showed you those numbers, $99,000 across 500 acres at loss. That, I mean, it's worth the time to get this stuff right. So, I was just going to show a picture really quickly of something my brother came up with this past year. These closing tails can get kicked out to the side, which can move your seed in the furrow, which can affect emergence. And so, we had this idea to use a laser. We squared up with the toolbar just to make sure those closing tails aren't kicked to the side. Again, how do we do better without spending a lot of money? This was just an idea that we had. Brad, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
Yes, what you say is exactly. I mean, if that thing is not trailing perfectly straight, you're exactly right. It's going to start kicking seeds all over the place, and it's going to ruin all the hard work that your meters did. Another thing to kind of add with one stage systems is like I know a lot of people don't want to justify paying for the two-stage systems. They are substantially more expensive. There are several different things that you can do to these one-stage systems to better yourself for the season. Just know what those are. So if you're thinking about, so all those are spring-loaded. I guess they do make pneumatic one-stage systems as well, and it would be a little bit easier if you did have access to that. But for this one, we'll just talk about spring-loaded downforce on your closing system. So if you went and took every single one of your closing systems right there that I'm looking at, and you put it in that first notch, and then you sat your planter down on a scale to see how much, what poundage
Mm.
that closing system is actually applying to a scale. All springs do not wear equivalently, no matter how bad we want them to. They will change. Sometimes you'll have to run one in the first slot and one in the third, based off of the wear of the spring. Just try to make sure that we are having equivalent weights all the way across the board, because once again, that goes back to our soil density equation. That's a huge, huge deal with how these plants are going to come up. Know your planting conditions. Hey, our soil is going to be a little bit more mellow, so I could take those wheels. I could probably get them to about 1.5 inches distance in between middle center of one of those poly spikes to center of poly spike. I would probably go with about 1.5 inches. As you shrink those, if you're knowing how it's jamming down on the V, if you have mellow soil, you can close a little bit more from the top up to kind of zip out a lot of those air pockets. If you're dealing with a big time moist soil, you cannot do that, or you're going to replicate that time lapse that we saw earlier in time lapse one.
Mm.
Uh, you're going to overclose and you're going to have seeds that don't even germinate because we done ripped all the oxygen out of the soil profile. So as it gets wetter conditions or no till and you're using a one stage, let's widen those up. You're going to change the point and you're going to be hitting at it like this, which is going to cause you to hit the bottom of the trench first and close it from the bottom up and actually invite the perfect soil density for even emergence. But it doesn't matter what system you have. It can change day to day. It can change field to field. You catch a little sprinkle or a heavy dew or something like that, and guess what? The first 2 hours in the morning might be completely different planting conditions than 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Oh,
Just
come on.
kind of
That's not
be.
what we want to hear. That complicates things, Brad.
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. No, this is good stuff and this is very helpful. Again, we don't want to go spend a lot of money for this year, but we do want to help you guys succeed. We're running out of time, so I'm going to wrap us up. I've gathered two resources. We mentioned two different companies today that can help you guys walk through planners. Precision Brad is the best of the best, but if you want like a checklist, you can go through, you can touch it, you can see it. I've put two guides up on the screen. You can Google and find these. We can send these out to you. Precision Planting makes a maintenance guide. Bex has a really good tool as well to kind of go through things. But what I do want to mention, we're going to do a second webinar. So we gave you guys the big overview today. We got you thinking. December the 8th at 9 a.m. Central, we're going to actually go through this checklist. So like, how do you measure your disc openers? How do you make sure that your closing wheels aren't too worn out? We're going to go through that on December 8th. Everybody's planner is set up a little bit different, but we want to help you guys again, get you thinking early so you can make these changes to be set up for success. Patrick, you going to say something?
Yes, if you don't mind. Hey, Hey, Colin, I see you in the tractor, man. What's up? Hey, take us off mute. I want to talk to you right quick. I'm gonna pick on you because I can see you. Okay. He said you're still on mute, Colin. Come on, brother. You
Here,
got to
let me
hit
see if
unmute.
I can take him off. Hold on, I'll unmute.
He's going. He's going after it.
Okay.
What's up, dude?
How y'all doing?
I'm good, man. Y'all can tell he ain't from North Dakota from what he just said right there. You can tell, can't you? Hey, Colin. So Colin is a new dealer for us. He's out in North Carolina. Unbelievable farm. I'm just going to use you, Colin, because I can see you as an example. Okay, I'm not going. You don't have to say nothing. But you guys just got done hearing from Precision Brad. Many of you for the first time, right? And let me tell you why Brad is here. Brad is here to support and grow your dealerships. That's why he's here. Your customers, you as farmers, he is here to be support for you and to help you grow your businesses. I don't know another company that does what we do that staffs somebody that looks like Brad. Maybe you guys do. I don't know of one. Why do we choose to spend that money? Why do we choose to value Brad in the way that we do? Because it matters, right? It's the right thing for the farmer. So here's what I'd say. Someone like Colin that's just coming on as a new dealer. Here's my challenge to y'all. Dealers out there, as you begin to have your winter grower meeting, you need to include Brad. You need what would be better than having Brad out to have, and maybe it's so I'm looking at Greg also. So Greg is the TSM for Colin. What about a Greg and a Brad winter grower meeting where Greg talks a little bit of the agronomy stuff, Brad comes in and it's a planter thing. Here's what I know about farmers, y'all. They love to talk equipment. They love it. And the planter pass is the most important thing. So you have a person that is just waiting on you to say, come and help me. And he's right here. And you guys just got a little snippet of what I've seen. He is more than capable. So I challenge you to use him and figure out what that looks like to help you scale your businesses out. He can do installs. He can sell the stuff where growers do installs. He can come and do presentations. He can have a sit down, Colin. I think about you and your operation and the 5 or 6 guys around you that you might sell to. Why couldn't it be a sit down where it's Brad and Greg and coming in and talking about that stuff? So, Camille, Brad, well done. Thank you guys for putting this together. This is just the start of a series that we're going to continue and continue. You guys knocked it out of the park, and I hope you guys as growers and dealers find value in this. We're not going to stop doing it. We did not talk Mutiny products today. That was on purpose. They did not try to sell you on liquid litter today. Isn't that a breath of fresh air? So that's who we are as a company. That's who we want to be. Camille and Brad, thank you for putting this together.
Yep. And if you guys think of questions, our phone numbers are on the screen, our emails are on the screen. This is recorded. We are going to share this with you guys. Please ask all the questions you have. Ask them early. Don't wait till February. I want you to start thinking about this now.